Well, hello everybody, welcome back to all my regular viewers, and a big hello to any new viewers here for the first time. I hope you're all well and looking forward to this second programme in the new mini-series exploring the major tributaries to the River Tweed. I'm doing this narrative close to the confluence where Lyne Water meets the Tweed, and it's Lyne Water that we will be exploring today. So I'm actually standing on the top of Lyne Viaduct. You may be able to see Lyne Water there just below me to bring you this narrative. So let's get going. Lyne Water is only 14 miles long from its source to its confluence here with the Tweed. It begins high up in the Pentland Hills, actually flowing south from the line of hills that flank the A720 Edinburgh bypass. We saw in episode 1 of the main series that 2 dams were built to create reservoirs to supply the city of Edinburgh. As the city expanded from 1800 onwards, numerous towns sprang up around the edges of Edinburgh and Glasgow. Those towns also needed a water supply, and so several small reservoirs were created in the Pentland Hills. Lyne Water feeds one of those reservoirs. This one is called Badonsgill Reservoir, built in 1926. A few miles downstream from the reservoir, the first settlement that Lyne Water flows through is West Linton, formerly known as just Linton. The village name gives a clue to its origin. Lyn is an Irish Gaelic word meaning pool. Remains have been found all around this area dating back to the earliest settlers. Evidence has revealed that the whole area was surrounded by lakes, pools and marshland. Records show that from the 1100s lead was being mined here. Almost certainly it was discovered long before that time, most likely by the Iron Age settlers. West Linton lies at a crossroads of what was two main drovers' routes through the Pentland Hills. Cattle were regularly driven through here on the way to market. The track that leads northwest towards Glasgow is called Thieves' Road, obviously referring to the activity of the reivers in the area. By the 1500s, West Linton had a tannery and a brewery. The brewery was run by the Younger family. William Younger, one of the descendants, left West Linton in 1749 to start a new brewery in Edinburgh. That became McEwan's in the 1930s, then Scottish and Newcastle in the 1960s, and today it's run by a company called Wells and Youngs. In the 1600s, Linton, as it was called then, became a royal borough and able to hold markets. By the time the railways arrived in the mid-1800s, primarily to facilitate the mines and the quarries, Linton had the largest livestock markets in Scotland. It also had around 30 weaving looms situated in people's front rooms, weaving cotton and wool for merchants in Edinburgh and Glasgow. Being only 14 miles away from the city centre of Edinburgh, West Linton, as it's called today, is a commuter village for those working in the city. Lyne Water continues its journey south out of West Linton and then east, meandering its way through the countryside until it reaches another very interesting place called Romano Bridge. Now, you may be forgiven for thinking that this place has something to do with the Romans, because they were all around this Tweedsdale and this particular area. But of course, the name Romano refers to the travellers, the Romano travellers, often referred to as gypsies. In the 1600s, these roads were turnpike roads, and wherever there was a bridge, there would be a toll house. Obviously, a bridge is a good place to control any movement along the road, and each traveller was charged a toll to pass. I guess you could say a very early form of road tax. The old toll house is still there at the end of the old road. In 1677, two gypsy families were returning from a fair in Haddington, just east of Edinburgh. They were arguing over the spoils they had taken at the fair, which broke out into a bloody fight as they crossed the bridge. Sandy Four and his pregnant wife were both brutally murdered, and George Four, his brother, was seriously wounded. The aggressors were the Shaw family. 14 people that day were arrested by the Laird of Penicuik and taken to a prison in Peebles. Robert Shaw and his 3 sons were then sent for trial in Edinburgh, found guilty and subsequently hanged in the Grassmarket in Edinburgh. Living in this small hamlet is another very interesting craftsman, a chap called Paul Macdonald, and he is a master armourer. So we're going to go and meet him now.
So I'm Paul Macdonald, and I run Macdonald Armouries here, where I make custom swords and knives. I also teach traditional swordsmanship and European martial arts as well, and do a wee bit of storytelling along the way. This is a sword I made some years ago that is a very exact reproduction of a sword from the Duke of Argyll's collection at Inverary Castle. And my challenge to myself was to make it not just to a similar form and weight, but to the same gram as the original, which was 936 grams, because this is a very good example of a very light and fast broadsword. It's only about £2 in weight in the hand and perfectly balanced, and feels incredibly light and fast when you wield it. So it's typical that you could say early to mid 18th century Highland form of basket hilt broadsword. This is a medieval sword just recently crafted as a very exacting reproduction of one of only 2 swords associated with the Battle of Stirling Bridge. There's not very many swords at all associated with the Scottish Wars of Independence, so it's been quite an exciting journey to discover these only last year, and they've brought about quite a lot of groundbreaking discoveries as well. But all parts of this sword are reproduced to exact dimensions, to the same 1/10 of a millimetre in all dimensions. So the weight, the balance, it moves exactly the same and handles exactly the same as the original sword.
What Paul didn't say was he made a sword for the royal coronation. One of the neighbours told me that after I'd done that interview with him. Anyway, thank you to Paul for that contribution to this particular programme. Lyne Water continues to meander its way south and east, leaving Romano Bridge until it reaches two small churches, Kirkard and Newlands Kirk. One is ruinous and the other is intact. The older ruinous church was built in 1317 and part of the Castle Craig estate. The more modern church was built in 1838 by a James Curry and is only open by appointment. From here, Lyne Water twists its way along its course, reaching the ruins of Drockhill Castle. Building began in 1578 by James Douglas, the 4th Earl of Morton and Regent of Scotland. A regent is a person of senior nobility appointed to rule on behalf of an infant monarch. In this case, James VI, the infant son of Mary, Queen of Scots, after her execution. To prevent Mary's hugely unpopular second husband, Lord Darnley, taking the throne of Scotland, the Earl had Darnley murdered. When James grew up and eventually became the first monarch to rule Scotland and England, he had the Earl executed. After all, Darnley was King James's father. Drockhill Castle was never finished, but it is obvious that it was intended to be more of a palace than a castle. Continuing the journey downriver, Lyne Water reaches the A72 and is joined by a small burn called Tweed Water. Before the river reaches its destination, it passes two other significant landmarks. The first is Lyne Roman Fort, which I made a brief reference to in episode 3 of the main Tweed series. The fort was built between 142 and 162 when Emperor Antonine extended the northern boundary of the Roman Empire to the Forth Valley. An important road connected two substantial Roman forts, one at Tremontium near Melrose, and we'll see that in a forthcoming episode of the main Tweed series, and the second fort was at Castle Dykes. Lyne Fort lay midway along that road. Lyne Fort was garrisoned by around 1,000 mixed Batavian cavalry and infantry soldiers. The Batavians were from modern-day Belgium, Holland and part of Germany. The sites of more than 60 Roman camps and forts are scattered around a 20-mile radius of Peebles. Next to the fort is Lyne Kirk, which I talked about in episode 3 of the main series, and close to it is Abbey Now, which has early Christian burial cists on the top of the mound. Again, that was covered in episode 3. As Lyne Water runs alongside the main A72, it flows under a stone arched bridge called Sheriff Muir Brig, which carries the B712 road from Drumelia. On the south bank of the river, immediately after this bridge, are the remains of a Roman quarry, maybe used to acquire the stone for the fort. After another sharp bend, the river flows under another small bridge and within 30 metres passes beneath the Lyne Viaduct. This carried the Symington to Peebles railway line and built in 1863. The railway closed in 1954, but the bridge remains in use as a footpath. Within 100 metres of the viaduct, Lyne Water reaches its confluence and becomes part of the mighty Tweed. Well folks, that's all for this particular programme. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, then please give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already done that. And don't forget that blue PayPal link at the top of my homepage if you can afford to make a small donation to the channel. Like I said before, even with nearly 3,000 subscribers, if everybody even gave 50 pence, that would be enough money to make an entire series. But don't worry if you can't or don't wish to make a financial contribution, because as I'm saying in all of these episodes now, there are other ways you can help the channel, and that is by first of all liking the video, passing the link of this video to a friend or a family member and get them to watch it. You can also maybe encourage a friend or a family member to subscribe to the channel. That helps as well. And the biggest way you can help is to watch the programme through to the very end, till the last title disappears off your screen and the music stops playing, because it's only then that YouTube record that as a view. So if you stop viewing when the titles begin, that doesn't count as a view, and it doesn't help me or the channel. So those are the ways you can help, and hopefully I'll be here to make many, many more programs that you can enjoy watching. Anyway, as I say, that's all for now. I wish you all the very best of health, and I'll see you again very soon in the next episode, but goodbye for now.